Good afternoon again. I need some real professional equipment. I have just been doing this with my phone, and I have a selfie stick and a little clicker that I use to activate my phone, so bear with me. What I wanted to speak with you quickly on, I have to watch the time because some of my videos get very, very lengthy. I have noticed, and I'm just making it my business, I have noticed, and people have come to me complaining that there are persons who have been assisting them, telling them that they can help with divorce matters. So they draft divorce documents for people, and a lot of times they are submitting these documents as though, well, most of everything now can and has to be submitted electronically through the local court system here. So the civil registry where these types of documents have to be filed does not necessarily know many times who are filing these documents. So I know a few persons who had divorce documents drafted by non-legal persons, meaning they're not attorneys. And of course, many people, even though in Cayman you can draft certain documents on your own, including divorce, if you know how, many people do not know how. So that means technically you have to find a lawyer. And the forms are all there online in the Grand Court Rules, I believe it is, where you will find the forms for divorce, how you can format your divorce documents and whatnot. But that's not the discussion today. The discussion is that there are people who are charging money to clients to to draft divorce documents. That means to put together divorce documents for customers, clients, and charging them a fee, and they do not have a law degree. They don't even have any type of legal knowledge or information. They have just learned how to file divorces, and they are filing divorces for people and charging. And then when things get a little bit complex, especially when it comes to having children and assets, house, car, bank accounts, sharing stuff, those things get very complicated. And then you know what, sometimes these people, these clients, get neglected, or they are no longer able to get the assistance of these persons. So I've seen a few ads. Some of you know who you are because I have reached out to you and mentioned at least about 5 people that you are engaging in the unauthorized practice of law in the Cayman Islands. You do not have a law degree to practice law. You do not have a law degree to draft these types of papers for people and give them legal advice, because mind you, especially divorce, this isn't like telling people you want to offer them immigration services. People come to you and tell you with the immigration services, hey, I need a temporary work permit. But the employers usually have all that worked out already. This is actually where you have to give people advice and tell them what you think they should be putting on these divorce papers, what grounds you think they should apply under. You have to tell them, there's different things that you tell people. You're giving legal advice when you tell people how they should apply for the divorce, what can happen during the divorce, and this and that and next thing. Now, there's a fine line between giving legal advice and telling people information that you know. But and also a fine line between doing document preparation services and giving legal advice and performing legal services. So I know a few people who've complained that they had these people put in divorce papers for them, and when the going got tough, then the service provider made excuses. They couldn't get their monies back. They was at a stop, dead end of what next to do, how else to continue the filings, and some filings were done wrong, and they had to be done over. They were wrong for 2 or 3 different occasions. I've heard a lot of different stories over the last 3.5 years, and I've been meaning to do a video on this, and I keep forgetting, but I am going to read from the Legal Services Act 2020 about practicing law in the Cayman Islands. This act replaces the Legal Practitioners Act, and this act tells everything legal in Cayman Islands. This is the authority of how you become a lawyer, how you become able to practice in the Cayman Islands, if you're a foreign lawyer, all that stuff. But most importantly right now, it tells you who and who cannot practice law in the Cayman Islands. And I know that that is not some of you that have ads out, oh, I can offer you a divorce for $500, right? Most people do not know the correct words to put in a divorce. And some people that know the law, like myself, but I have also been very careful how I even speak to anybody that's not someone that I am very, very familiar with, because I don't want people going back and say, oh, Patricia told me this, because it's the unauthorized practice of law. I can make a suggestion and say, well, if that was me, I would get a lawyer. If you want a lawyer for a divorce and you don't want to Google, message me and I will refer 3 lawyers. I like to refer 3 lawyers, and you call them yourself, speak to someone, get a consultation, ask if they can give you a free or reduced fee consultation, and find the best one that fits your situation. And then there's 2 free legal clinics in the Cayman Islands, Legal Befrienders and Cayman Islands Legal Clinic, CLAC, that can give you advice on divorces. They can't do the paperwork for you, and especially where children and domestic abuse is involved. So you people that are practicing law publicly, I've seen your ads, you need to stop it. You don't know if the authorities are watching you. At this point, I have been advocating for persons to become certified document preparers, which are like certified paralegals. So in the States, for instance, I was in Florida and North Carolina, and I was a notary public, and I was a document preparer. So certain categories of law in the States, depends on the states you're in, so I'm talking about Florida and North Carolina, permits a paralegal or someone who has a paralegal or legal degree, and or someone who's registered as a certified paralegal who is working under the authority of a lawyer, are able to provide certain services. So like, for instance, certain levels of family court, workers' compensation, social security, but those people have to be registered. Like for social security and immigration, you have to be what is recognized as agents. I'm not sure if that is here, the same way here, because I know there's so many immigration companies that have popped up over the past few years. I'm not sure if work requires these companies to register with them as agents, but in Florida and North Carolina, if you want to be an immigration agent, you have to actually register with USCIS and what's the other department name? But USCIS, which is primarily responsible for all immigration applications, permanent residence, citizenship, they call it work visas. And let me tell you, in the US, you rarely can get a work visa. So stop criticizing Cayman, because if you do get a visitor's visa and enter the US, you don't have much grounds to talk about, oh, I'm going to apply for a work visa. That's what they call it. It's usually only farm workers, laborers, labor that they have to import, domestic helpers, caregivers, those type of people. You're not going to get any work permit over there, a work visa for any other job. You have to be a permanent resident or a citizen, meaning like you have Cayman status, or you're there illegally. So when I'm crying and complaining about how hard Cayman is, the only reason why people are able to come here, because we're so small, we don't have the population of our own people to fill these roles. But don't complain if you get the opportunity to be here and apply for a work permit, because you if you were able to get into the US, you couldn't do it. It's not that easy. I don't know about the UK or Canada or any other Caribbean countries or wherever. So back to the issue, because I have a tendency to get off track. In these states, right, you can be a document preparer and you can prepare certain documents, but you have to be under the guidance of a registered lawyer who is registered to practice law in that state. And there are only certain levels of involvement that you can get in as a paralegal. So I have been trying to advocate for something like that here in the Cayman Islands. I haven't heard that there's any headways in that, but I do believe eventually we're going to get to that. Honorable Chief Justice Margaret Ramsey Hale, Attorney General Samuel Bulgin, Premier of the Cayman Islands Andre Ebanks, Deputy Premier Gary Ruddy, the government, the opposition, Mr. Franz Manderson, maybe before you go out in June, because this is still only April. You all can start working on this Law Review Commission. I'm not going to forget you guys. Maybe you guys can start working on this. The law school, I know you guys get involved, some of the bigger tiers of lawyers. The Legal Practitioners Association with Mr. Barton, you guys could all get involved in this and come and see what could be done, because there is a gap that is needed to help with legal services. Our population is 90-something thousand now, I understand, or close to that, and we have so many legal issues where people are just running to the courts. The courts are overloaded, especially, well, both civil and criminal, but we have so many people that need legal services here, and there is that gap that needs to be bridged between the needy and those who can afford legal services. And this would solve that problem if we were able to pass legislation or regulations that would allow, and I think that there's provisions for that in this Legal Services Act, if I remember. I was reading it the other night, but I was more concerned about the practice. But I think, no, I don't remember seeing, but let's not quote me on that, because I don't have time to look over that. But it would be a tremendous help to our community, to the residents in this country, and especially our Caymanians, because there's so many people that are in need that can, especially with family court and with estate law, and that means wills and trusts, and immigration, because some of these immigration agents aren't, they're not, they just prepare the application, but they're not versed on the law, from some of the complaints I've read. But anyway, let me get back quickly to the unauthorized practice of law. So again, like I said, I'm reading from the Legal Services Act 2020, which is actually, it was passed in 2020, but it's actually now in force. So that means it's actually what they're using. And so Part 3, Section 24, restriction on the practice of Cayman Islands law. Okay, so I'm going to read most of it is written here, but then try to break it down for those that are listening and watching. So it's basically saying, except as provided by this act, a person shall not practice Cayman Islands law in the Cayman Islands or any other jurisdiction, right? Section 24.2, a person who contravenes Section 1, that means who practices law in the Cayman Islands or any other jurisdiction, but pretending like they have the ability to practice law in the Cayman Islands, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction, that means you go to summary court, to a fine of $100,000 or be imprisonment for a term of 2 years or both. So if you are caught practicing Cayman Islands law in the Cayman Islands or in any other jurisdiction that is found to be so in the Cayman Islands that that's what you're doing, as though you're saying you can practice law in the Cayman Islands, you can be fined upon being convicted in summary court to a fine of $100,000 or imprisonment for a term of 2 years or both. Matter of fact, we need to change that, Attorney General and Honorable Premier and members of government. We need to change this. We need to put the term of imprisonment could be maybe 5 years, because people aren't deterred. If people were to permit me to use their names and tell their stories, I could share them out of people that are, you think immigration losing money, and employees losing money through immigration, and employers keep keeping their money after they make them pay for work permits. You really need to check out these persons that impersonate and say they can help people help people file divorce papers, and then the people get fluked. The clients get fluked, and then they're stuck. Divorce lawyers, I know you pay a lot for your law degrees, but and your practice certificates to practice in the Cayman Islands, but let's be real here. If you were to even offer some reduced services, the more clients you'll get. There's lots of business here in the Cayman Islands. Lots of business, family court, divorce. I don't mean to laugh, I'm sorry. I ran for elections. I came out and said I was going to run for elections last year, and contrary to what is on the public platform out in the hemisphere, I withdrew and decided not to run again because I started my law degree and I didn't want to stop pursuing my law degree and have to do like 2 other past MPs and candidates that stopped their journey for their law degree 3 times in order to pursue politics. I didn't want to be that person. I am so close that I said, you know what, let me just finish this, and if it's God's will for me to decide to run again, then I would have had my first love already under my belt, and that's to have my law degree. And so that was the case. But what happened is that if you don't have your law degree in the Cayman Islands, you can't practice. You can't tell people I can help you do your divorce for $250 or $500 or $1,000 and help you sort out your assets. You're giving legal advice and you do not have the certification to do that. Section 24.3 says, for the purposes of Section 1, a person practices Cayman Islands law if for or in any expectation of gain or reward. That means if you given legal advice and practice in law for monetary gain or any type of reward, that person provides legal services in respect of the Cayman Islands law or in the islands. That's what's happening. If you give legal advice or you tell people you can help them draft up legal documents such as divorce papers, and they're giving you gifts or monetary gain or paying you for these services, you have been found to be practicing law in the Cayman Islands, and it's illegal for you to do so. If you're in doubt and you don't understand the law, call the court's office and say, hey, call the civil registry. I can't remember the deputy clerk of court there at civil registry. Her name's right on the tip of my tongue. Call her staff, and they will freely tell you, no, that's not something that you should be doing. And I'm going to tell you people that are paying for these services, like I tell the people that are paying for the immigration application services, if you don't complain, you've lost your money and you can't be helped. Do not fall for this scam, because they do not have the authority to help you draft these legal documents and to tell you what to put in them, because that's what they're doing with family court documents. Now, if you file a civil plaint, that's a pro se service. You can do that on your own, and that is very clear. All you have to do, put your own words in there. This person did this and that, and to me, and this is what I want to be done, and this is how much I think my case is worth. That is very self-explanatory. The courts cover that very, very well. The Honorable Chief Justice has made sure that it's still only $25, God bless her soul, to file that. They have the package that explains everything in very plain language. The forms are all there, and the package is very free. No payment for that. Or you can go onto their website and download it. That's different than when somebody is drafting legal documents for you and helping you bring a big lawsuit and saying, I'm going to charge you for this. That's totally different. So getting to section 5, this is quite lengthy. Let me see if I need to read this. Notwithstanding subsections 3 and 4, a person is not to be taken as practicing Cayman Islands law for the purposes of section 1. So that means if you considering sections 3 and 4, right? If you're not doing these, a person is not taken to be practicing Cayman Islands law for the purpose of section 1. So if you're doing these other things, let me read them for you to better explain it. Notwithstanding subsections 3 and 4, a person is not to be taken as practicing Cayman Islands law for the purposes of subsection 1 if the person, A, in a matter of a legal nature, acts on a person's own behalf or on behalf of an entity, whether or not incorporated, in which the person has an interest, or by which, in the case of an individual other than an in-house counsel, the person is employed. So you can't do any of that stuff basically if you're not employed an in-house counsel. That's my understanding of that. If you're a public officer, prepares a document or instrument in the course of a person's duty, that is not to be taken as you practicing law in the Cayman Islands. As a director or owner of a company, acts on behalf of the company, whether in relation to a document, an instrument, a proceeding, or otherwise if permitted to do so. So basically, if you act in the best interest of your company and you work at that company, and you're doing certain documents and signing certain things, that's different. You can't be looked at as practicing law and be held accountable and liable. That's my understanding of that. Okay. Prepares a will that does not contain trust provisions. So if you're preparing a will but it doesn't contain trust provisions, because trust provisions definitely need a lawyer. But if you're just preparing just a standard basic will for someone, they're telling you what they want in there, not you're telling them what they should put in there, and you are witnessing it, that's my understanding from here, is that you're not considered as practicing law in the Cayman Islands. Okay. Some of these I really don't need to read just for this purpose of this video, because I think I've made my point that basically, yeah, some of these I don't need to read. They really don't apply. So basically, if you decide you're just opening up a business, or you're running a business from your house, and you're helping somebody file certain legal documents and charging them for that, you're providing illegitimate, illegal uh, services, and you are engaging in the unauthorized practice of law. Again, it is the Legal Services Act 2020. It is now in force. You can call the Legal Practitioners Association if in doubt, or you can call the Civil Registry at the court's office if in doubt, or you can call in a lawyer if in doubt of you doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And I think you can probably call the Law Review Commission. They need some calls out there too, I'll bet. Anyway, guys, I just love to smile. I love to throw in a joke or two to just, ease the tension in the videos and make it a little bit more interesting. Oh, what I was telling you guys about with the running for politics, I lost my track there, was because someone said to me when he first heard that I was running that if it is true that I am running, he don't want nobody that smiles a lot. He wants a serious politician. So basically he was telling me, stop the grin, I gotta be more serious. Stop smiling, I gotta be more serious. But I love my smile, people love my smile, and like I said, it's more relaxing for people when they're watching my videos. But these topics are very, very serious. Many of them can get people in trouble. So whenever you watch these videos, you gotta pay attention and try to do your best to adhere to whatever the contents are, because let me tell you something, this government is no joke. I don't know who's taken over from the deputy governor, Mr. Manderson. We have not gotten that honorable information yet, but I can tell you they're going to have themselves a job filling his shoes, because let me tell you, this is a lot of work, and he's just as part of the government as the MPs that are elected, because they make a lot of decisions that affect this country. So people, you need to pay attention. And if somebody wants to charge you money for doing your divorce and they say they're not, and you ask them if they have a law degree, do not pay that person. If you don't understand and you're not sure, call the courthouse. I'm trying to encourage government to try to get some WhatsApp numbers so people can call through those WhatsApp numbers. Although it's going to take extra staff to probably monitor those, but many of you don't have credit that need these services, and then you don't have a way to call. You can't get to the office and that sort of thing. So you kind of stuck. But don't let people steal your money. Don't fall for these ads that they have on social media or anything like that, and let them steal your money, and then you get stuck and spend a couple $100, and then you can't finish your divorce, you can't finish your child custody agreements, you can't get your assets all divided, and they're giving you advice that they shouldn't be giving you, and it's terrible advice, and then you lose out. Sometimes the husbands, sometimes the wives, sometimes the plaintiffs, the people that file civil suits, sometimes the respondents, the person that answers the civil suits. So there's a lot of muckery going on here in Cayman. Muckery, I said, means muck, not mockery, but muckery going on here in Cayman. And I am doing my part to help alleviate that, to help the people that are getting scammed, taken advantage of, and just not informed. So thank you again for listening. I need to get to the immigration thing, but thank you again for listening.